Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, and King Dio. Lately, over the past couple of days, I have been playing a lot of the great Ace Attorney. I finally managed to pop this thing in, and I'm a good chunk of the way through the first game, I think. I'm on episode 4. And I think I suggested as such in my last review, talking about the game and how I was feeling it. I think I specifically said that I liked the setting and the characters and things of that nature, but wasn't really drawn in by the plot or the mystery specifically. And I've played enough of the game now, 4 episodes in, getting a real feel on like some of these revelations and stuff like that, getting an idea of where the plot's going to go. And I do think at this stage it's safe to say that I don't like the game. It's kind of a weird situation. This entry seems to be taking radical departures from the typical Ace Attorney formula. Typically, you have like a situation and you have like a client that you need to like prove innocent by any means necessary. There are like subversions, there are twists to the formula, but generally speaking, you're trying to get to the bottom of some kind of mystery, some kind of a murder case usually. There are instances where they do something a little bit different, but generally, like Ace Attorney follows a pretty strict formula. And one of the reasons I was so excited about this entry in particular is that like this is a game where they clearly tried to buck the trend. They tried like really radically changing some gameplay aspects, really adding to the courtroom sections, really adding to like the investigation sections, really making things feel a little bit more tied together from case to case, as opposed to being like the episodic format that a lot of these games usually take part in. There is an overarching plot, but usually they just have some shitty plot twist at the end, where like some character you knew, like throughout the. They're usually pretty self-contained. Usually, like there are some exceptions, like Trials and Tribulations, the best game in the series, does have a really good overarching story, but typically they seem to be very, very episodic, and as a result of that, by the episodic nature of these cases, these the mysteries can be really interesting and really compact and really like go all sorts of really weird places. Like Trials and Tribulations, for example, like it has case 3-3. Now the naive answer, like when discussing this game, is to call 3-3 like a disappointing case, because it doesn't really have anything to do with the overarching plot. It doesn't have anything to do with the story arc of the trilogy up to that point. It really has not. It doesn't really advance the protagonist in any way. But what it is an extremely fun, compelling, interesting mystery with a lot of really cool, unique twists and turns, and a lot of really cool, original characters and concepts. When it comes to the Great Ace Attorney, in contrast, I find myself really shocked and appalled, honestly, at just how it feels like the mystery aspect is taking. Feels like it's taking a back seat to the plot, to the characters, to the setting. That seems to be what Capcom really wanted to do with this one, is to like make the game more story focused. And I cannot begin to tell you just how much of a misstep that is from a gameplay perspective, from a general like as a general fan of these games. Like they essentially did the I don't want to call it like the I don't want to like compare it to The Last of Us, because it's really not that bad, but it's a similar kind of style where they're putting the story before the gameplay and sort of building up some ridiculous conspiracy revolving, like, I don't know, the London upper class and like the prosecutor and just the court system and stuff like that. They're building up to some idea of like some situation regarding these characters, and we have no idea what's happening yet. My assumption is that it's all going to come to a head in Case 5. Or even the second game. But like the entire game has kind of felt like that, right? Like it feels like it's building up to something greater. Like it's building up to like something more. But what you're doing then and now, generally speaking, isn't very interesting. Like the investigation segments, feel like they drag on way longer than they need to. A lot of like the exposition doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of the character aspects don't make a lot of sense. The big thing that's really getting to me right now, the main reason I'm like really complaining about this is that like they introduced the character of Iris Wilson, who's revealed to be some steampunk inventor who's writing the Sherlock Holmes stories in this version of the universe, and she's roommates with fucking Holmes, and like for some reason she's a doctor at 10 and she's LARPing as like an older British it's retarded. Like it is ridiculous. Like the weird reaches they had to come to in order to make like the Watson character a 10-year-old girl, just though they throw a lolly character in there. Fucking hated that. Like complete garbage. I'm glad Iris isn't like doesn't seem to be a major focus of the plot. Didn't care for her at all. I like Pelova a lot more. I like Gina a lot more. Fucking hated Iris. She was a piece of shit. Like, do not care for her. Hope she dies. Hope she fucks off. Hope we never see her again. I know that's not going to happen. I know we're going to see more of this bitch going forward, but did not care for her. Feels kind of like a Mary Sue-ish character. Not a fan of her. Don't like her design. Don't like anything about her. Not at all interesting. I don't like it when they kind of present characters as these original characters do not steal, as being like better than like the original thing in their own respective niche, right? Like they kind of established early on like Sherlock was not like what he's hyped up to be in his own way, in his own weird way, and I was kind of on board with that. But with like introducing Iris and like having her like kind of establish that like, oh yeah, she's better at Holmes and deductions, and she invents stuff, and she writes novels. It just and she writes the Holmes stories, and she somehow makes them more believable. It's and she's a doctor of medicine. It's just so fucking ridiculous and so over the top. Like, Trucy, right? Trucy Wright's a good counterexample of this. So, yeah, Trucy Wright comes from a family of magicians. She was fucked over when she was a kid. But she's not like a star magician at like 15. You know what I mean? Like, she was always going to be a magician. She was always going down that life path. But like, she was like poor as shit, lived with Phoenix in that shitty apartment. Had all these like personal problems, and like is still trying to build her career even like 6 games in, right? Like by case 6, I think she had only just now gotten her big break. I don't remember what the exact situation is. There was a natural progression, right, when it came to like Trucy Wright, establishing her as a character, and then kind of like building up to that. Like they didn't just say like, oh man, Trucy Wright, she's 15 and the best there is at what she does. No, it's fucking stupid. Like Maya Fey, introduced like early on, right? The power of spirit channeling, right? She can call back the spirits of the dead, but no, she kind of sucks at it and can't do it on demand. She gets better at it as the series goes on, right? Culminating in like 3-5 and stuff like that. She becomes the master of Kurine Village by the end of the 6th game. But generally, like when I compare like those characters to like Iris, like the difference in writing quality is just staggering, right? They get so much more across in so much less time. Like I talked a little bit about this when it came to like when it came to the second case. I was comparing like case 1-2 to case like case I don't know what you would call this, like G1. I don't know what people are how people are numerizing these grade 8 attorney cases. Like I was comparing like the second case to the first game to that case, and like I said that like I was focusing on like the emotion of that case, right, where you have like Phoenix dealing with Mia's death, meeting Maya for the first time, forging lifelong friendships while they take down a criminal, right? Like you have like a lengthy investigation segment, you have like a handful of trial days, you have like a pretty cool payoff. I mean, obviously, I think the payoff could have been better. Like I personally would have had like I don't know, like I personally would have waited until like maybe the end of the game to have that confrontation, and maybe had like Von Karma be like the antagonist to the second game. I don't know, like, but there are some iffy aspects to the first 2 Ace Attorney games that I personally would change. But the way it played out was like fairly well handled for what it was. When I compare that to like the Great Ace Attorney, where like it spends so much time like explaining shit over and over and over again, usually not very well, sometimes having these weird leaps of logic, like for example the whole omnibus thing in case 3. They wheel this thing in. Okay, it's been thoroughly examined, we know everything about it, and somehow they fuck with the thing while it's in the courtroom. They like the evidence is tampered with. Like don't and the characters notice it. Like there's a girl there taking notes, right? She's documenting the entire situation. Like can they just review the notes and go over like what they were talking about? Like the characters know that's something up. Everyone admits that's what's happening, right? Like even the defense is kind of acknowledging that, like your character is acknowledging that something is up, and in the end, you get not guilty. And from a story perspective, it's a really interesting twist because, like, typically what happens in these situations is that not guilty would like make you feel really elated, really make you feel like you really did something great, like you really like helped overturn these overwhelming odds. But instead, what you get is like more questions, right? Like, and that's a really good feeling to have. Like from a storytelling perspective, I thought that was great, but from a gameplay one, like it felt like it didn't come together very well at all, right? Like they raised more questions that they're not answering, and I don't think they'll be able to answer in a satisfying way. They introduce like more characters, they introduce like more plot threads, and it's just like it feels like they came up with the plot first and like designed the cases around the plot, and as a result of that, like the cases themselves feel like they suffer quite a bit. Like I actually did see through the whole omnibus thing, the evidence being tampered with. Like I did notice like the evidence disappearing from the chest and things like that. I was just like, huh? What happened here? It's a legitimately good twist, right? And that's one of the reasons I'm so conflicted about the game, because like it's doing so many things differently, so effectively, that like I as an experienced fan of the series am like completely taken aback by it. Like it seems like really masterfully done. From a storytelling perspective, I went from like really wanting to being really convinced that like McGilda did absolutely nothing wrong from the beginning to like thinking he did something by the end. And I don't know, in case 4, building up to a completely different case, it's like I don't know. I'm not as invested in that case because it feels like, okay, it's just. I don't know. I'm on case 4 right now. If you're not aware, episode 4. I'm still trying to decide just how I feel about all this. Again, like the story is not bad exactly. There are different things that like I really relate to very very much. The things that I think that are great subversions to the typical formula, but like. Subversion doesn't necessarily mean that that the story is better off. Like in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of the subversions they've been throwing at us when it comes to like the characterization specifically, like Iris Wilson. I'll just call her Watson because she's Watson apparently. Fucking Watson. That character, like some of the weird contrivances. I typically don't feel like Ace Attorney games have plot holes. Not really anything I can name. Whenever someone like Nick Rekieta names a plot hole, I just kind of roll my eyes and laugh at them. But tries to name a plot hole, I should say. I just roll my eyes and laugh at them because like they typically don't understand how like the court system in Ace Attorney works. They don't really like take it in. They don't understand like it's a video game and not meant to be like. Identical to real life, realistic, I should say. Who can't suspend their disbelief. Honestly, people like that. But in this game, like I do feel like I find it very difficult to believe that like Holmes can be as scatterbrained as he is and still somehow be like the great detective, like the greatest of all time. Because like anybody who's like read the classic stories knows, how people typically treat Holmes when like they're not aware of just what he can do with his like powers of observation, with his mental acuity and shit like that. Like typically, like a lot of characters are like very, very skeptical of him until like he really proves his mettle and stuff like that. Like it's kind of weird in that sense, where like the game feels pretty spot on to the Holmes stories in a lot of ways. Episode 4, Sasudo. Oh shit! Why do I keep forgetting her name? Sasudo. Is a big Holmes fan, and she avidly reads like the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, written by fucking Iris of all people in this universe. Big fan of it. She mentions like the King of Bohemia from the Scarlet Letter, like that situation with like Irene Adler and stuff like that. Like hardcore Holmes fans will pick that up. Well, even casual fans, I think, will pick that up. Like, it's a really cool reference, but at the same time, like, well, what does this have to do with what's going on now? And that's kind of one of the things I'm kind of wondering at this point, like, in episode 4. What does any of this have to do with Sherlock Holmes? Like, why is he even there? He has no presence in, like, case 1 or 3, and in 2, he's just kind of there. Like, he just kind of, like, dicks around a little bit and makes himself a nuisance. Now, he's amusing, like, he is, but, like, it's one of those things, like, okay, shouldn't Sherlock have been the protagonist? Like, why not just have, like, a female lawyer character and just have, like, Holmes be your assistant, like, during the investigation segments or something like that? Like, I don't know, do something really different. Like, I like Satsuo, like her a lot, but, like, very charming character, but like, if you're gonna make a game, like, set in, like, Sherlockian times, like, have Sherlock Holmes as a major character, just make him the protagonist. Like, have him be more involved in some, like, meaningful way. Like, have some of the characters from the classic stories show up. I think they are building up to that. Like, there's a Lestrade girl. I think she must be the daughter of the Lestrade from the stories. I don't know what the situation with that is yet. Like, I'm glad that there's no Irene Adler or anything, like, ridiculous like that, but when it comes to, I don't know, there are things they could have done to better tie it in with, like, Holmes continuity. Like, and I don't feel like they're really doing that. In fact, they just it feels kind of like a bait and switch after the whole, like, oh yeah, all these stories, they're semi-biographical. They're based on real events, but like I give them artistic licenses. It's just I don't know. It takes away from the entire, like, appeal, I think, of, like, Sherlock Holmes, of just like trying to say, like, yeah, all this stuff totally happened, and then no, actually not really. It's stupid. I didn't care for that at all. Yeah. So, what next? What are we gonna see next? What are my thoughts gonna be like the end of the game or the end of the second game? Honestly, like, I kind of feel like I want to take a break from it because I've just been playing it so much. I feel like I'm kind of burned out. But I mean, if I'm feeling burned out on something, like, I think that means that I'm not really enjoying it. Like, I hate to say it, but I think I am kind of feeling that this game isn't necessarily up to the quality that I expect from Ace Attorney. I hate to say that because, like, I'm a big fan of Holmes. I'm a big fan of Ace Attorney in general. But this is just, it doesn't feel up to the quality I expect from this product, from this team, from this company, from this franchise, from the brand. Like, when it comes to Sherlock Holmes, like, it just feels like a cheap cash-in in a lot of ways. Well, cheap is kind of a stretch, but because, like, a lot of these animations are gorgeous. I think it looks better than Ace Attorney 6 when it comes to, like, the character models and just the animations and stuff like that. Like, it feels like they put a lot of effort into it. But there are so many things, like, that I think they could have done with this plot, with this aspect, with the characters they introduce even, that they just haven't done, and I don't think they are going to do. That just makes me, like, really question really question just what they were thinking with this with this concept. It should have been great. It should have been like one of the best Ace Attorney games. It really should have like really taken this this new setting and really done a whole lot more with it. But no, I don't feel super engrossed with what's happening in the Great Ace Attorney at this point in time.